Welcome to the webinar. I'm Chance Barnett, co-founder and CEO of Crowdfunder, and we have Sandy Miller from Singularity. Sandy, say hello, please.
Hi there, everyone. I just wanted to, first of all, thank Chance and the team at crowdfunder.com for doing this for the Singularity community. And I just wanted to also give a little bit of background about crowdfunder.com and Chance as a brief introduction, and then we'll get started with to learn more about crowdfunding and particularly crowdfunder.com. So Chance is a serial entrepreneur, and he has had several successful ventures prior to crowdfunder.com, including being a best-selling author and speaker. One of the things that's really important to understand is that Chance is, we really wanted to get Chance to talk about crowdfunding because of his activities in the U.S. with some significant legislation and regulations with respect to the Jobs Act that really has allowed crowdfunding to become more widespread here in the United States, as well as he's going to also tell us about activities that are rolling out around the world. So he's really been, at the table with, heads of state in the U.S. and abroad, and is helping to get crowdfunding, spread so that we can all be more successful with our ventures. And from a Singularity standpoint, one thing I would just, as a brief disclosure, is that our CEO, Rob Neal, want to just let you all know he has, he's a big fan of crowdfunder.com, and he actually has invested in it, so that's just sort of a disclosure. And crowdfunder.com is something that is one of the crowdfunding platforms that Singularity Labs is using for our companies, and so you're going to hear more about that from a labs perspective. So with that, I'm going to turn things back over to Chance, and we're going to learn about crowdfunder.com.
Thanks so much, Sandy. I appreciate the introduction, and I'm really excited to be here and to be working with you and your community. I remember the first time that I heard of Singularity University, I thought, Eureka, how obvious that something like this that has so many incredible people who are game changers, who are innovators, and who are focused on creating big impact. How come this didn't exist before? And so I'm really grateful that you, that Rob, that Peter Diamandis, and other great people have put this together, including Ray Kurzweil. So thank you for letting me be a part of it, and I'm excited to be here in front of some of the community here. So I want to share with you some specifics about, as Sandy mentioned, crowdfunding, what the current opportunity is to engage with crowdfunding if you're interested in, say, funding your own social enterprise, or if you're interested in getting engaged and involved to support people you know, you like, or to take your community, like the Singularity University community, and give it a home where people can engage in the supporting, vetting, and ultimately the funding of great entrepreneurs and great businesses that can go on and scale and create impact. So I'm going to share with you some specifics about my experience on the legislative side. I'm going to share with you what the current opportunities are for you both domestically and internationally. And then I'll also share with you some specific tips and insights on how to be ready for crowdfunding, what the mechanics of crowdfunding will look like, and how to know what's right for you. And then how to run a successful campaign as a brief overview. I only have about 35 minutes here, but I am going to take some questions and some Q&A at the end of that 35 minutes. So I'm going to talk quickly. If you have a question, we're going to go ahead and take some questions at the end. I would encourage you to just go ahead and in GoToWebinar here, you can actually write in a question. I would love to see your questions, and I would love to try and answer your question. I know I'm not going to be able to answer all the questions that come here, but what I will do is I will take a list of all of those questions, and I'll work to create a Q&A that I follow up with for this community here. So either write down your question and we can answer it, or please put it in the question dialogue here and we'll get to it. So I'll only spend a second about me in the context of how can I help you and why am I someone to help you. I did start participating in Jobs Act legislation early on in the process in roughly November of 2011. And that's when there was a framework for changing existing laws around how investment works, or securities laws in the US, that ultimately went on to become the first crowdfunding bill that was in the House of Representatives. And so I got involved in Capitol Hill by seeing a story about some great entrepreneurs who had actually drafted this initial framework. So out of my interest, after having done several startups, after having had successes in those startups, and a couple of failures and frustrations in fundraising for my own ventures, I was really excited for the creation of a market that I see can both be more efficient for entrepreneurs, for example, saving you time so that you don't have to go out and try and meet 50 wealthy investors and have them write $100,000 or a $500,000 check, but that you could go out to your community of a much larger group of people and save yourself the time and have the benefits of using the efficiencies and scale of the web to bring power to your fundraising. On the other side, if you're an investor, to also save you time, to give you access to opportunities and investing that you might have never had before, and to democratize finance on the side of investors too, to allow everyday people to invest in crowdfunding. So what's different about Jobs Act legislation and what I'm talking to you about crowdfunding that you might not be exactly clear on right now is there's a difference in what the Jobs Act spells out for crowdfunding and what crowdfunding has been to date. And so I'm going to get into the specifics about that, but the real difference is that this new crowdfunding that's coming online under Jobs Act legislation is really about being able to, for the first time, invest in companies or fundraise and allow yourself to offer shares in your company to people who would fund your company. So I participated in the House, the Senate, engaged with the White House, and then engaged directly with the SEC on the rulings and regulations about how this Jobs Act legislation for crowdfunding is and will be implemented. But again, I'm a founder and entrepreneur myself. I've gone through a lot of the challenges of fundraising. I've had successes, and I'll share some of my insights on that. And also share a larger overview of where I think the industry is now and where it's going to go, and how to be there and how to use that for your advantage. So one of the things that I want to zoom out for a second and go to a 40,000 foot level with you for just a moment and say this is a very unique moment in time. The Jobs Act and what we're poised to have here initially in the US and what also is rolling out internationally across other governments and across other capital markets and economies is this notion that distributed or collaborative finance is not only a new idea, not only an alternative, but is being seen as a really powerful grassroots bottom-up way to finance development, whether that's a social enterprise or an everyday small business that might be a restaurant. And so I want to give you a little bit of sense of the market that's possible. So you probably see here on your screen a very quick visual about the market potential for what I call business crowdfunding. So not just crowdfunding as you might know it on sites like Kickstarter where people donate, but investing via crowdfunding, which is this new market that's made possible under the Jobs Act. And so the scope of that in the US, and I'll throw a couple of numbers at you here, there's around $30 trillion in personal savings and investment accounts in the US. That roughly boils down to how much is in savings accounts and how much are in things like mutual funds and investment accounts that people don't proactively invest, they don't really manage too much, but is sitting there and could be put to work. If you took just 1% of that overall savings and investment market in the US and you put it to work in, say, social enterprises and small businesses that might not be getting the funding that they want today, you would create a market for investment that is $300 billion in size. And that market is 10 times the annual size of the existing venture capital market for early stage ventures as of 2011. So what we're talking about here is over time, as crowdfunding investing can grow as a market, that you might see a very significant shift in where dollars come from and how they're invested, not just from existing wealthy investors, but from everyday people who care about investing in their community, or from everyday people who might make a great living of $200,000 but have never invested before, and now they get access to investing in local opportunities and local impact businesses that will create jobs in their local economy, for example. So right now is a unique time where all these elements have come together. It's the right economic time. People, I think, are ready and in the right mind space socially to be engaged in this more collaborative alternative form of financing. Technology is really accelerated and allowed us to do this, and really the social web is what's powering this, that people are trusting and putting their identities online, and that creates a lot more potential transparency for investing. And then the last piece, which we participated here at Crowdfunder, is legislation. So we've actually changed the investment laws to allow investing to be brought into the quote-unquote digital or internet age, since securities laws have not been updated since 1934. So let me give you a very quick 45 to 60 seconds on the crowdfunding industry. I'll talk quickly, so stick with me. In the year 2000 up to the year 2005, people used the internet and found that they could have a little bit of success raising money for a cause. Maybe it was saving the whales. A few people who were musicians who had run out of record sales but knew they had fans around in their own home country and internationally, found that they were able to pre-sale tickets to concerts and fund going on the road and touring again and creating income. And these were novel things, but they were kind of one-off, and they weren't quite an industry. But they started to develop, and as we moved into 2005, 2006, you started to see crowdfunding take more shape with sites like Kickstarter, where that got really defined down to projects and products. And so the model became more about pre-purchase of an existing product. And these were transactions in a sense where people saw it, and on impulse, they said, hey, this is novel, this is interesting, I'm willing to donate, or I'm willing to purchase whatever reward that person might be offering. A copy of that product, some type of participation. And that market has grown really, really well. And that's been a fantastic validation for what we're about to see, which is business crowdfunding or crowdfund investing. The reason we hadn't had that before, and why crowdfunding hasn't been directly aligned with businesses and investing, is that there was a regulatory barrier. So the Jobs Act legislation removes that regulatory barrier and allows us to move from this prior world of what I call crowdfunding 1.0 to the new world of crowdfunding 2.0. And the new world of crowdfunding 2.0 is not about donations. It's not about impulse transactions where people are just focused on an engagement and a quick transaction on a campaign page where a video might stimulate a quick decision where someone then funds something with $5 or $25 and gets a perk back. What we're moving into now is crowdfunding 2.0, where businesses can really participate, where people will be not just funding, but investing in businesses. And so investing in businesses is a much different experience for an investor. And it's also a different experience for you as a fundraiser, as a person with a business. It's a slightly longer term, if not much longer term decision process. And it's about building a relationship, not a transaction. This will be company-centric, not campaign-centric. Meaning, if someone's going to invest, let's say, $5,000 or $25,000 in your business, they're making the decision not about how fancy your video was, even though that can matter. They're making the decision based on who you are as an entrepreneur, who you are as a social entrepreneur, what kind of impact you're looking to create, what kind of credibility you have, what your work experience is, and how credible is your plan, what is your long-term strategy, and how confident do they feel that not only are you going to be successful, but if the success works, will you scale the impact that you're having? And will there be some kind of profit and purpose or impact return for that? And will that really function? So we're entering the world of crowdfunding 2.0, and that's what we're focused on here at Crowdfunder. So investment crowdfunding, there's been a lot of talk about it. It's been a fairly long process over the last 16 to 18 months that a variety of people have been engaged with, including us at Crowdfunder. Right now, we're at a period where crowdfunding legislation under the Jobs Act has already passed. It was signed by President Obama April 5th of 2012. We at Crowdfunder met with the SEC, who is the Securities Exchange Commission here in the United States that regulates all investment activity. And the SEC was given 270 days to outline the rulings of how this new law will actually be implemented to create a safe environment for investors and to create the right environment to help entrepreneurs make high quality offerings that aren't of very high risk to investors and to educate them in the process. So where we are in that process now is that we're close to 270 days in, and the SEC hasn't met some of their initial timelines. What we're going to see now is the following schedule. There's a staggered series of rulings where not all of the elements of crowdfunding will be rolled out at the same time. The first element that's being ruled on is what we would call accredited investment in a private environment, or noisy 506 deals. And that's just fancy language in securities language to say that there will be a market prior to a much more public, anyone can invest market, where only existing accredited investors in the United States can, in a private environment, see opportunities to invest in a company. And they can be advertised to by that company, by any company interested in fundraising, and have the opportunity to invest. So that will exist only in private networks. The timing for that is likely early to middle of the first quarter of next year, meaning we're only a few months away from finalized rulings that allow that entire market to kick off. So to give you a tiny bit of note there, that existing market of private investment among accredited investors is generally called Regulation D offerings or private placement memorandums. And all that stuff aside, that market size is around $1 trillion invested annually. So this is a very large market. Some of this does include impact investments. And so you will see a large amount of activity from accredited investors start to grow, but really just be born in the first quarter of next year. So at Crowdfunder, we're going to be powering investment for a select few companies, and we're very focused on the social enterprise and impact investing space, which is why I'm here talking to you as part of the Singularity University community. So when can you start raising investment online? Well, you can actually, as you might think about it, if you're raising an investment round, the time to ask and take in money is not the moment you want it. The time to start preparing to take in money is now. And so we have a social network, and there are networks out there where you can start building some of the core assets, some of the documents, and be involved in the process that you'll need so that when crowdfunding legislation is finalized and the regulations are finalized, you'll be able to kick off your fundraising campaign and be ahead of the game. And so I'm going to share with you some specifics about how to do that. If you're international or you don't want to work with Crowdfunder for some reason, I'll also share with you some resources outside of what we're doing just to make sure I'm a good guy and adding value. So what are some of the implications for social entrepreneurs? Well, what I believe is the following, that to date there's been a smaller community of people who understand the difference between and the space between a nonprofit and a pure for-profit company that isn't focused on social good or impact. And that area has been growing over time, and the market's being validated. A great sense of validation comes from things like that the Dow Jones Sustainability Index, which is an index of companies that are public companies in the US but have sustainability goals and metrics that they work towards, those have outperformed consistently the Dow Jones Industrial Index. And what that really means is that's a fantastic validation that's saying that while there was I think to the general public, a nascent market for impact investing where they weren't sure if this was really better business just because it was better socially, that's a great point of validation. My point is that I believe there will be significant growth, not only in existing investors who weren't focused on impact, starting to focus on impact investing in this new crowdfunded environment, but there'll be an entirely new class of investors who weren't engaged in this. Call it a successful entrepreneur who was never an angel investor before, but had a bit of money that he or she wants to put to work and would be more interested in putting that money to work for a cause and a for-profit social enterprise that's going to scale and potentially create impact. Long story short, I believe that crowdfunding and what we're focused on at Crowdfunder will help really accelerate this market for impact investing and bring a really great spotlight to social entrepreneurs. And it will have the velocity of the social good, meaning that I don't believe people will be making investment decisions just on the dollars and cents. That if you're investing, let's say, $2,000 in an entrepreneur that you've discovered on Crowdfunder, and they have an impact goal, you might not be investing just to try and get that return on your money, but you're also going to be investing because you really care about that, and it's a unique opportunity for you to be an investor in an impact organization that you wouldn't have had before. So I want to move on. Again, I'm talking a little quickly here, but I'd love to get your questions. If I don't get to your question, I will follow up later. But I want to share some of the benefits beyond crowdfunding if you're new to this space. I sometimes, as the founder of Crowdfunder, think that everyone's heard about it, and that's certainly not the case. So crowdfunding is a new way of financing a company, and there's some specific benefits to that are beyond just depositing dollars in your bank account. And so a few of those are listed here. One of the core things that I'll mention is that investment is a fairly social activity. In fact, it's inherently social. If you want to raise investment dollars offline, you have to connect with an investor. You have to connect with people, and you have to spend the time building a relationship. Well, what's fantastic about crowdfunding is that it's really built on the stack of the social web, meaning that we at Crowdfunder do things like connect an investor's Facebook account and their LinkedIn account. And we take an entrepreneur and we allow them to create a company and connect their LinkedIn account to import their work experience and their actual identity on the web, which allows people to start to see more, to do background checks, to vet each other, and to understand who they're really engaged with, and if that's something or someone that they would want to do business with. So there's a social culture around crowdfunding that's inherent to what we're doing. Crowdfunding is also a fantastic way to build an early customer base and to use it as a marketing tool. So imagine in one scenario that you didn't use crowdfunding and you went and you found 5 investors who each were going to put $100,000 in your company, and those were very busy angel investors who would like to have time to participate, but likely wouldn't have as much time as your company got going. You would only have 5 of those people, and they're probably pretty busy people. Well, let's flip that on its head and say how that might work in crowdfunding if you made an offering and you allowed people to invest, let's say, a minimum of $5,000 for that same $500,000 raise. You would have a much larger pool of investors, and you might also be attracting, beyond just an angel investor or someone who's interested in funding impact, you might very likely be attracting the people who are going to resonate and be the future advocates, supporters, or even customers for your product or service of what you're doing. And so you're actually enlisting not only a pool of investors that's slightly broader, but you're also enlisting a pool of evangelists who will very likely at any turn of your company where you have an ask, where you have specific needs, where you might be looking for a new hire, or you might be looking for some specialized resource that might not be easy to find, that might be easier to go out to this larger pool of people and ask them and engage them to help your company. So it's a fantastic engagement tool. It's also a fantastic validation for your product or service if you're getting key customers and advocates talking about you and supporting you. So imagine someone who's raised $100,000 from 1 or 2 angel investors that no one's ever heard of. And that person then goes on to a later stage investment fund who is taking a look at the investment and says, okay, well, you had a couple of investors. I don't know who those are, but why should I invest in your company? Well, imagine that scenario is different when you come to them and say, well, I raised $100,000, but that came from a community of customers who were validating my product, and of the people who invested in me in my crowdfunded round, those are actually people who are using my product and not only believe in it, but they believe in it so much that they wanted to become an investor. That's a significant form of validation that you can't really get in another form of a form of customer engagement to your fundraising. What you'll likely also see as a final outcome of this process is that it's not a one-step process, and it is social. So people are engaging with you all along the way. And what you'll find in your campaign is that you'll also be getting feedback that's not only just, yes, I'm in and funding, but you'll be getting critical feedback. You'll be getting vetting from the crowd of people who are interested in your industry and what you're doing, but might be a little bit more critical and have hopefully constructive comments for you about what you might be able to do better. They might have suggestions or recommendations about people you should talk to. And so you're going to get a lot of engagement that you would have never gotten in a very private one-on-one environment from people if you were just pitching investors at a large conference table. So those are some of the benefits beyond just funding in your pocket. So what are some of the essential steps? As I mentioned, crowdfunding is inherently social. And so what I'm laying out here is a few of the things to think about as you're looking to crowdfund to start to adopt the right mindset. And the right mindset is right because what you're thinking about, your underlying psychology, is going to affect your behavior and your approach, and thus it's going to affect the outcome. So I want to work just for a minute on the mindset, and then I want to share how crowdfunding is social a little bit more here. So adopting a mindset that you're starting to understand how other people perceive your fundraising campaign is very important. One of the keys to this is something that I call social capital. And I'm going to talk about it a little bit later, but social media allows you to validate and broadcast some very important social signals about yourself or your company. And those signals can include, how many people or how many friends do I have is a very basic metric. But what could be more powerful is how many people have actually endorsed me as an entrepreneur. So you see things like this on networks like LinkedIn, where someone could be endorsed for social entrepreneurship or impact investing. And that's just a little score on who you might be that to an outside person who doesn't know you might be more credible than you saying it about yourself. So what's meaningful here is to leverage social media, to leverage your personal social network, and to use those potential assets for the betterment of your campaign, because you're going to be able to bring that to bear on your online profile around your company for fundraising. And those things will be influencers that help people understand why you're a credible entrepreneur to invest in. So as part of that, you're also going to, since you're not face-to-face with an investor, having, let's say, an hour or 45 minutes of their time to tell your story and to pitch your investment or your social enterprise, you're going to have to become a more concise communicator, knowing that you're using social media, knowing that the potential for the attention span of someone who's going to look at your offer might be different because they're doing so within the window of their computer, where they might also have their email open, where they might also have 15 other browser windows. And I think you know how people use the web. So point being, you need to start to think about how you're communicating and how to really grab the right person's attention and engage them in a specific way. So that also involves thinking about how to educate them about what you're doing and addressing some of the things that you might assume that they do or don't understand. An example of that was something that I just did with you. I didn't want to assume that you understood all of the benefits about crowdfunding that extend beyond just the money you would put in the bank to fund your company. So I took the time to make sure that you understood all of those additional benefits beyond funding. So you need to learn to go above and beyond and be very clear in communicating with this social network that you'll be building around your company, knowing that you're attracting new people who don't quite understand the core essence of what you're trying to do yet. And that really speaks to how do you create a culture around you inside a community so that people can understand your mission, understand your goals, and really align with you. And so here's a very specific visual example of someone who's an active angel investor and very active in social enterprise, who's on Crowdfunder and is one of our partners, which is SoCap, Social Capital Markets, and that's Kevin Jones. And so Kevin is mentioned here, and you see a couple of things. One, you could click on his profile on Crowdfunder and look at his Facebook profile or his LinkedIn profile just from the little badges down there. But what you also see is that Kevin has a network. and that he has one team of his own, one company, but he's following several other companies, and he has 184 connections. So those are people that he's engaged with on Crowdfunder as his crowdfunding network. And Kevin might have contributed to several campaigns. Here it says that he's contributed to 4. So this is taking it down from the theoretical that I showed you above, that crowdfunding is social, and showing you how some of these social layers and mechanics really start to build momentum for you if you're using it in the right way. So I want to shift gears for a second and move into some of the mechanics of crowdfunding about how this will actually work outside of the theory and down to the nuts and bolts of how it's going to work for you. So I'm going to cover a few of the following things. One, there's 2 basic models of how you can fundraise, and I'm going to cover those, and then I'm going to go into depth about why each one might be the right one for you and how to know. I'm also going to talk about the 3 keys to a successful crowdfunding campaign that really give you an advantage to understanding and unlocking the potential in your personal network, as well as on a network like Crowdfunder's network of crowdfunders. I'm going to share with you some specifics on international crowdfunding if you don't live in the US, or you don't have a US-based company, or you don't think you're a fit for the Crowdfunder platform. And then I'll share with you some specifics on how to be successful on Crowdfunder. So which crowdfunding model is best for you? Crowdfunder, we're not focused on creative projects like a Indiegogo. We're not focused on funding individuals for some random cause that has nothing to do with impact or building a business. We're focused on businesses, and at the core of that, we're focused on social enterprise, but we're also focused on small businesses, and we have a handful of great tech startups that are also looking to fundraise and working with us. So we're crowdfunding for businesses, and in social enterprise, we're focused on for-profit social enterprises, for-profit companies with impact goals. But the 2 basic models that we help businesses fundraise through are what we call contribution-based fundraising and investment fundraising. And so contribution is the non-investment, more rewards-based model where you're not giving up equity in your company or debt. You're in essence allowing someone to purchase something from you or to donate, and that could include contributing to your impact goal directly. That could include participating in something that you're doing. That could include becoming a user for, let's say, a year free to your product or service, or whatever initiative creatively that you might come up with that aligns with your business and the longer term goals that you have. So this is part of the creative side of crowdfunding. If you're looking to do a non-investment or contribution campaign, what are the things that are actually attractive about you, about what you're doing, about your mission, or about your product or service that people would really find attractive and either want to participate in or to purchase, have, or engage with. And so those are things to think about if you're thinking that a contribution campaign might be right for you. On the other end, there's an investment-based fundraising, and this is either equity or debt. So investment is fairly clear. You're explicitly giving someone a financial interest in your company. That could either come as something like a convertible note, that would be short-term debt that could then convert into equity later, or it could be debt that you feel confident that you can go out and raise and you'll be able to repay those investors over time in a direct, scheduled way. So we're currently powering contribution, and we have a really specific focus on working with great social enterprises currently. In our contribution network, we recently funded a company in 56 hours. We funded several other social enterprises like that one we funded in just a few hours. And we're looking for great campaigns to highlight and to share with our community of crowdfunders and impact-minded people. As I said earlier, we're not working and rolling out investment crowdfunding due to securities and legal reasons until later in the first quarter of 2013. But we are looking for companies who are interested in that time frame for us to be working with them and help educate them and get them set up now to be ready for when that turns on so that they can take advantage of that. So those are the 2 basic models. And I'm not going to go into deeper specifics about how each of those work on this shorter call, but if you have questions, please send it to us in the question window here on GoToWebinar. So I also said that I would share with you the 3 keys to business crowdfunding success. And so here are the basic ones that you want to think about. This first one on top that you see that says pitch and plan. This is still one of the core parts that was part of crowdfunding 1.0 and the contribution or donation based world, but it's also true for investment. You need to, within a 20 to 45-second window, and maybe even less, have a great story and have a credible plan about what you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it. And if you can do that in a simple 20 to 35 seconds, where you start to tell your story, whether that's a video, whether it's a tagline of your company, and the way that you describe your opportunity or your impact, then people will be intrigued and they will want to know more, and they're going to spend the time to dig deeper, to read through the rest of your plan, to understand who you are, and to figure out if it's right for them to invest or fund your business. However, on the other hand, if you don't catch their attention within that first 10, 20, 35 seconds, and it isn't credible, and it doesn't grab them and say to them, this is something I have to pay attention to, and it's meaningful to me, and I get it, then you're going to lose that person's attention. So that first area is really core to how do you communicate with your potential investor. And that really stems from what is your pitch, and do you understand how to start, go through that pitch, and do you have a cool plan about how you're going to pull that off that an investor could dig a little deeper into? And those are that's one of the keys to success, and that's really about how you communicate what you're doing in your business. The second key is what I alluded to or mentioned a little bit earlier, which is called social capital. And so social capital is, in short, the sum of the value of all the relationships that you personally might have, that all the members of your team might have, and that your company itself as its own organism might have for itself as a brand, as an identity. The value of all chips are often greater than their parts. So social capital is meaningful because, as I showed you with the social profile we looked at earlier, those can be interesting, meaningful bits to people when they look at it to say, this person is credible. Hence that qualified referral. Personally, let me give you an example of how social capital, more to the point, social influence works. I've actually had an experience where I was trying to get the attention of an investor for a prior business many, many years ago, and I was unsuccessful at ever getting this person to respond. I tried and tried and tried for months, and I tried a lot of great techniques, and I fancy myself a pretty good communicator and writer because I've had a lot of experience around it. Well, lo and behold, I happened to run into a really great entrepreneur who had raised from this same investor. And that entrepreneur said, oh, that's funny. Yeah, sometimes that person's hard to get a hold of. Let me send an introduction email, and I think he'll respond. So guess what? The entrepreneur that I had met made the introduction, and literally within 45 seconds, that same investor responded immediately and was really interested, and I had a great meeting with that investor. The point being, what mattered was not how great my plan was. What mattered was the social referral that made me credible, that saved that investor time from having to filter out all the people that are vying for his or her attention, and allowed that investor to use their network to attention. That's the way a lot of things happen, and the web is a fantastic tool for that, for you to take advantage of. So the tangible takeaway here is that you likely already have a social network, both in the real world and your digital world. That could be your Facebook friends, it could be your LinkedIn profile, it could be whatever networks that you focus on. But if you can surround yourself on a investment platform like Crowdfunder and bring to bear all of those relationships, then you're going to make yourself that much more credible, and it's going to be that much easier for people to see you as someone that they should pay attention to. Social influence is very powerful. The final element, which is new in this crowdfunding 2.0 world, is investment return. So I think it's fairly obvious what this means. In the crowdfunding 1.0 world, there was only donations. There was only perks and rewards. And in this new world, there is now the potential for you to offer a financial return to your investors if you're choosing to do an investment-based crowdfunding round. And so you don't have to sell this one to people. The number sells itself. The return, what's unique about social enterprise is that return should and will also include an impact return for that investor. So what's the credible story, not only about how you're going to return on the capital that an investor might give to you, but how are you going to create a picture and a clear story of the return for the impact that you're creating? Those are some of the hardest challenges as an entrepreneur, and it takes a lot of guesswork, but that's the hard work that's going to get you the money you want when you solve that puzzle piece and start to make those numbers make sense, both through the traction of your company and for the larger plan that you have. So those are the 3 keys for crowdfunding success. At Crowdfunder, as I said, we're focused on social enterprise. We have a great initiative with some really fantastic partners in social enterprise that we're just starting to roll out. I'm very excited, as I said, to be working with the Singularity University group, and we have some other great partners here like SOCAP, like Tonic, which is a global network of impact investors looking to invest up to $100 million in impact investments in great social enterprises, and a lot of other good people. So if you went to this URL, you would see a success story, an article that I've written that is a little bit about the high level about what I see the longer term possibilities for impact investing looking through Crowdfunder. And you see a list of these partners. Why does this matter to you? Well, what we're building is a network and a community of impact-minded investors and of other great entrepreneurs and mentors who want to see your social enterprise, who want to interact and connect with you and build a larger community for themselves. And so we're really focused on helping social enterprises and the impact investors who want to be a part of it find each other and engage in a social way, and when they're ready to fund impact and to start to work together. So what are the opportunities internationally? We've been spending a lot of time the last year working in Mexico, both with the government, with top groups of investors, and with some non-governmental organizations and groups that mentor entrepreneurs like the Endeavor group. And so we're very excited to be rolling out crowdfunding in Mexico in early next year as well. And so that will be focused on equity-based crowdfunding raises, both for social enterprises and for technology startups. There's a really interesting market in Mexico. There's a whole lot of capital that wants to be invested, but there hasn't been a great culture of investing in early stage businesses, and that's something we see as a really great transformative opportunity for us to help power with the great community of partners that we already have. So you see a few of the partners there. That's a growing coalition as well, and we're excited to be working with those people. If you don't live in the US or Mexico and you have some urgent funding needs that you want to work with now, there are some great other crowdfunding platforms out there. If you're in the United Kingdom, Crowdcube is currently based on crowdfund investing being already legal in the UK, already powering investment deals there. So they're a unique site. They've been doing this for roughly, I believe, 14 to 16 months. And so that's for investment. If you're looking for donation-based fundraising in those markets, Kickstarter and Indiegogo also service those markets. If you're in Brazil and Latin America, there's a growing network called IDMA. They have been doing well in the Latin American market, just recently purchased a company in Brazil, but have focused on some of the other Latin markets such as Chile, such as Mexico, and so that's a currently active crowdfunding platform. And then in Europe, there's other sites like Seedups and Simbid. So it shouldn't be hard to find if you know some of these international markets, and just look up crowdfunding platforms for them. I haven't used them personally, but I've heard these, and these are some of the names that really keep coming around in the network and the community. So I would recommend, if you have urgent needs and we can't serve them at Crowdfunder, please go check those out. So I want to give you a tiny short window into the crowdfunding platform at Crowdfunder, the social network, and how you can leverage it for that social capital of your own, and set yourself up for success if you're interested in doing a contribution or an investment raise. So I'm going to go to that in a second, but before I do, I wanted to share what our impact initiative is And it's really to measure the impact of job creation from the access to capital that's created by the Jobs Act. So crowdfund investing will create a new market that will help fund businesses. But funding itself doesn't always mean jobs. So while we know we're going to be driving funding, we're really interested in measuring the actual jobs impact creation from that capital. And so that's not an exact science, and it really takes longer term legwork of following up, of surveying companies, and of keeping in touch with them after they've raised money. But the first way that we do it is on Crowdfunder. JobStart is an independent nonprofit organization we've created to do this measurement. And so we at Crowdfunder pass information to JobStart that entrepreneurs have reported when they've done a successful fundraise, because we ask entrepreneurs how many existing jobs, if you reach your funding goal, will you employ, and how many new jobs will you hire. And so we pass that information on to JobStart, and JobStart does the legwork of making that credible and of actually finding what's the true metric over time by interviewing the company, by keeping in touch with them, and to make sure we have a more credible impact number assigned to us at Crowdfunder of how we're creating jobs. So we've had a variety of activities, and we're starting to measure these things, but that's really JobStart's imperative. Is we're not great at measuring that yet, and JobStart is starting to get there. So finally, I wanted to show you, like I said, a few of the tips and tricks in what Crowdfunder looks like. So I think you can see my screen here. I'm here on Crowdfunder on the home page, and you can see contribution, investment, fundraising. What I want to first take you into is a profile, the social enterprise hub that I was mentioning. This allows you to see some of the campaigns, if you want, that are currently being funded, that are social enterprise campaigns. Here's a couple that were funded recently. And if you go back, you could actually sign up as a social enterprise yourself, create your user profile and company profile, and get started in this community fundraising for contribution. But we also have a fantastic list of partners that you can see down here. And in the near future, this will become a filter for some of the top opportunities, both social enterprises who are having success and starting to raise money and giving them visibility to this entire community, and highlighting key investors who are interested in engaging with social entrepreneurs and allowing those people to connect. So this will keep evolving over time, so check back. You already saw some of the campaigns. Here's a recent campaign that was funded that has impact goals. The company is called Listen. They're in Los Angeles, and they, for every single pair of headphones that they sell, help restore hearing to a child in a deaf school. So they've been successful raising in just a few days. I think this was over a couple weeks' time, $6,340, which are essentially people purchasing different options of rewards of those headphones or donating to the company. So you can go ahead and check that out, and there's 1 day left if you feel like getting a great gift that will also be meaningful for someone for the holidays. Finally, there is the social network for both companies and for entrepreneurs or investors. What we're looking at here is a profile of Tonic, who's one of our partners. As I said, they're an early stage impact investor network looking to invest around $100 million in early stage social enterprises. And it was created here as a profile to start to connect with people. And it was created by their founder, who I'm clicking on here, Morgan Simon. Morgan lives in San Francisco. You could go ahead and see her LinkedIn profile if you wanted to check it out and connect with her there. You could see her Twitter, and then you could connect with Morgan. And in the very near future, we're just about to open messaging, so you could actually start a dialogue with these people. So the Crowdfunder social network is growing and will allow you to instantly connect with the people already in your network on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter. And then we'll soon start to give you recommendations both in social enterprise and in other key areas of your interest to help you build a network when you're ready to, let's say, start funding impact or to start doing your own fundraise, so that you're building your social network and you're building your social capital. So that's the end of our presentation. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for being here, and it was a pleasure presenting to Singularity University community. We're really excited that we're in the near future going to be creating a dedicated space for Singularity and for the community, for the investors that surround the community, for the mentors and the faculty, and for the social enterprises and impact-minded entrepreneurs to all engage together around rallying resources for companies and ultimately funding them. So I would love to ask you, highly encourage you to go ahead and sign up for Crowdfunder, and please connect with me. I'm signing in here. If you sign in and you look for people, you can easily search for Chance. Feel free to connect with me, and I'd be happy to take a look at your social enterprise and know more. Thanks for your time, and be well. Thank you.